Yay! All right. So today what we're going to look at is this question, and we just talked about how this question is a bit of a tricksy one, in that you think that the answer is, you know, I'll talk about I'll talk about characters and like how they represent belonging, and that would be like a mid to low range response. But the question really invites you to do text construction and talk about how are these characters doing the things that they do in terms of belonging. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So, I guess what we have to do is decide on the things that we want to talk about in terms of character construction. So, how are characters constructed? How do we get these characters? Yeah, how does a writer make a character?
Well, in Black Digger's case, it said in the foreword that he actually went to families and used accounts of the actual people.
And then makes the archetype. Yeah, like that he makes like an archetypal character, so a symbolic character that is like an amalgamation of lots of different characters. Right, so I need a text box. Okay, so characters, that's all right, I'm going to change the colour, don't panic, work as archetypes for he doesn't have long vision. Did you want to try my glasses and see if they help?
Oh, cool, let's try.
Oh, really?
Now I'm going to become even more blind.
Look at my
Oh, that's weird. Now it's just worse.
Because my glasses are
I
for
look like Harry Potter?
I don't look like Harry Potter with my glasses on.
No, but I do.
And they're also, no, sorry. Oh, wait, I'm going really close to the camera. That's more my concern. I'm getting way too close. All right. Okay, so characters work as archetypes to communicate their sense of belonging, yeah? Their sense of belonging. All right. Okay, so that's a really good point. I love that point. I don't know about you guys, but I love that. Because I think it's still done, even though Daguerre doesn't kind of come out and expressly say, I'm using Whitechapel and Chapel as archetypes, like as kind of like a symbol of what a slave's life is like. That's exactly what he is doing, isn't it? Like, Whitechapel is supposed to represent, like, someone who has been indoctrinated by slavery, and Chapel is supposed to represent kind of the new generation of slaves that actually pushed back against slavery. That's like their purpose, isn't it? We're not actually supposed to kind of go, well, this is a 1 in a million circumstance. This is kind of like what we kind of envision what it was like. So, how else do characters explore belonging? What do we think? What's another way that kind of characters are created that tells us stuff about how they feel? I'll give you a hint. Talking. There's a hint.
Whoa.
No, that's this.
Do you even know what it means?
¿Qué cosa?
Right.
Rick.
Rick.
Mr. Cayley could go on YouTube.
Mangiare.
I don't think he's going to go on YouTube. I think we're safe.
Okay, Daniel.
Right.
That's what
Narration.
Oh,
Yeah, that you could talk about first person narration, you could talk about third person narration, you could talk about dialogue narration. All of those things.
Yeah, I know.
Because they actually talk about their belonging, don't they? They express their belonging or lack of.
I feel like there's better ways than that.
Dialogue.
Oh.
I don't like this.
Right. Now, you could do a mixture of both, like talking about how characters use belonging, and then a paragraph about, just like belonging and how it's represented. That would be okay. You could do a bit of both. Anything else that we could kind of use? I would love to just do just text construction with this one, just to kind of push us. You know, there's no point doing something that you could do yourself at home. You know, let's do something that's pushing you out of your comfort zone. And I feel like this is already kind of pushing you out of your comfort zone a little bit. So how do characters in the longest memory explore the idea of belonging? Oh! Names. The use of names. This is a great paragraph for use of names, because use of names is all about belonging, isn't it? You know, that names are changed because, you know, you're seen as not important, that you can be kind of changed into something else. I just noticed, Sarah, that you have given, again, a very poor photo of me.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Where? Oh my
That's not flattering.
I miss.
That's not an angle that does me any favours. Woo! Whoa.
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, it's called,
genetics.
yeah.
Alright,
They break
characters.
people like me out. Yeah.
Characters' use of names. Yes.
So, like, if the German's white, I wouldn't be white.
No, because you're blonde and have blue eyes, you'd be alive.
Yeah, but look, I'd be
Alright, we can talk about whether we kill Ricardo or not later. Not while he's here. It's really awkward. Stop making it weird, mate. Right. So we've got characters' use of names. We've got characters work as archetypes, which I love, and characters' use of narration, which I'm not rapt about, but I feel like it could actually really smash the bit about belonging. Okay, so let's talk about characters' use of names and how that communicates stuff about belonging. What does the character's use of names have to do with belonging? What does it tell us about belonging? No, you go, darling.
Like at the start of Whitechapel, showing his lack of belonging, how he said
I have no name. Yep.
boy, and then when he was given a name by Mr. Whitechapel, how he was taken and then like showed he felt like he belonged there. Could you say
Like how they
because he's given the name of Whitechapel that he belongs to Mr. Whitechapel?
Yeah, that it's belonging, but it's not belonging with, it's belonging to.
like this place.
You know, there's a big difference, isn't there? Like you belong with someone, and that's nice. You belong to someone, not so great. All right. So, the overarching idea that we're going to go with is that names in both of these texts show when people are deprived of names, that it shows a lack of belonging.
Would you say it also like symbolises their place in the patriarch?
Sorry. When they're deprived of their names. So, like that works with Black Diggers, where in Black Diggers they're deprived of their names and given other names, right? Yeah. Anything else we want to add with names? Remembering that this is only one essay, so we can't do a whole paragraph. We can't do a whole essay on names. Do we just stick with that idea
Yes.
with
I
names?
think it's sufficient.
I think if we do more, we might create a bit of a pickle. All right, so we're going to say BD names changed in order to serve. And then the longest memory, name, well, lack of names in terms of cook. Like, she doesn't get a name, she just gets an occupation. Lack of a name, cook. And the bestowing of the slavers. Sorry.
No, no, miss. So just make it more on the right. Move it more on the right, yeah.
Slavers. Name shows belonging to and not belong with. Right. Bold. Alright. Love it. Great paragraph. Alright. The next paragraph that we're going to look at is characters work as archetypes to communicate their sense of belonging. Okay, so characters work as archetypes means like the Black Diggers, like the Aboriginal soldiers in Black Diggers. Represent what all Aboriginal soldiers faced. Oh, sorry, typo. Right. So the Aboriginal soldiers in Black Diggers represent what all Aboriginal soldiers faced, don't they? They're supposed to be a representation. Do any of our characters at the end of the texts feel a sense of belonging to Australia, to their country? Exactly. So if the archetypes don't feel they belong, then we are supposed to assume that Aboriginal people don't feel that they belong. Yeah. That these Aboriginal soldiers came back and they didn't belong. Right. Belong, and thus the audience is supposed to assume that all Aboriginal soldiers struggle to feel a sense of belonging. Right. Hush, you very stupid creatures. Right, I'm trying to educate you. I'm doing my best. Right. So, we've got the Aboriginal soldiers in Black Diggers are supposed to be archetypes. And they represent what all Aboriginal soldiers faced. And they feel like, all of the soldiers at the end of the text feel like, I don't belong. In fact, Nigel says, I don't belong. And thus, the audience is supposed to assume that all Aboriginal soldiers struggled to feel a sense of belonging once they came back from war. Make sense? Alright, what about longest memory? So, Chapel and Whitechapel are supposed to be our archetypes of slaves. Good. So, Whitechapel and Chapel are our archetypes of the old and new generations of slaves. And then I guess the conversation could be, sorry, that's not fitting, is it? We've said too much. We've said too much. Very dramatic of me. Yeah, I might have to. And then move that across. Okay. I shouldn't have made that noise on. Oh, really? Oh.
Oh my god. Oh, this is
Oh my god.
I know, I loved it. Paul turned his head and it was like looking right at him. It was like their eyes locked. Yeah.
I can't believe you actually called it.
Alright. I make that noise and it freaks my dogs out.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like a
They're just like,
It's a very cool.
kill?
It's
Did I
actually
kill?
so convincing though. Like if I heard it in the wild, I wouldn't even.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I've always
First
been
off,
wild.
why would I be in the wild? Second, why are you in the wild? You know, while he's doing his jungle treks. You know what I'm picturing? Rick in the Wild would be like, you know, like the old school like pith helmets. You know, the white pith helmet.
Yes.
He's in a safari suit.
Yes.
It's got like he's got like this like utility belt. And he's that's what he looks like.
With no contact lenses.
Yeah, with no contact lenses. So he's like he's got like a walking stick in one and he's like holding his arm out in the other.
Which ways though?
Oh, so good. I'm locking that memory
It's
in.
true though.
So
Just because life is the wild.
now that I've had like the funniest
I know, right?
imaginary experience. So alright. So Whitechapel and Chapel are archetypes of the new and old generations of slaves. If they are archetypes, what do they tell us about slaves and belonging?
They don't.
They want to. Some seek belonging and some.
So yeah, okay. So the new gen seek belonging north in the
Could you even
north,
say
and
the youth slaves of I don't know, just say like they're all becoming more educated and they're starting to fight against it.
yeah, in the north because they are. I guess yeah,
Standing against
their eyes are starting to be open, aren't they?
yeah. I guess it's probably only with the exception of Chapel, but it's fun. Maybe it's a symbol that
Yeah.
they eventually thought, nah, I don't want to do this shit.
I don't want to be, yeah. And that's exactly what happened. That, like, more and more slaves started to push back.
Yeah.
And then the old generation, you could talk about that misplaced sense of belonging. Yeah. Had a misplaced sense of belonging due to like the indoctrination, yeah. Due to indoctrination. Right. There's our second paragraph. Can you see how I'm just using like text construction? That I'm looking at these characters and I'm going, they are a construction, they have been put together to do something. That they're not just these kind of like fully formed creatures from day dot, that these authors are actually constructing them, putting them together to do certain things. You know, so for instance, in Harry Potter, I know I always use Harry Potter, but that's because it's the best. In Harry Potter, the character Hermione is a construct, right? And the reason that it's constructed, the reason why she's constructed that way is because J.K. Rowling said, I want to give like a strong female lead character to young girls. And I wanted them to have this idea that they could be smart and clever and still like bold and brave and whatever, that you and that beauty isn't important, that you know, like your inner resilience is. And then they gave the role to Emma Watson, and then we were all like, what?
Yeah.
But that being said, she was like very little when she got the job, so like who knew if she was going to be pretty? She could have ended up ugly. You don't know that.
Isn't calling her body a construct objectifying women?
What?
You're reducing something less than a person. Crazy.
Right.
That's not
Last but not least, we've got to do our last paragraph.
correct.
We've done good. Let's do a little bit more good. Done good. I'm Daniel. Done good.
No, you didn't say burrito.
No, I got no interest.
No,
We've already talked about that last lesson. You missed. Yeah, you missed our discussion about Mexican food. Right,
I don't eat.
which I stand by.
That's weird.
Which I stand by.
Are we for it?
So, characters' use of narration. That's our last paragraph. How does the character's use of narration explore the idea of belonging? How do the things that the characters say show us either a lack of belonging or a intensity of belonging?
When the white people in Black Diggers say like, "Oh, you're not a citizen," like stuff like that.
Good, yeah. So who were they? They were the officers, weren't they? Officers in the exactly. In the what was it? In the recruitment hall. That's right. Hall. What are they? How would you describe it? They kind of like isolate them, don't they?
They don't.
Page 22. Yeah. 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 And obviously you've got Nigel. The final piece of narration is "I don't belong." Yeah. Nigel's final words. I don't belong. Yeah. And like the poignancy of having the character Nigel, the person who we've connected to most in the story, because he was the first person we met and we saw him as a child, to have him say "I don't belong" tells us that Aboriginal people feel they don't belong. Does that make sense? All right, what about in longest memory? How do we get a feel from what people say that they don't feel a sense of belonging? Oh, Chapel. I'm running. I feel joy, not fear. Yeah. That, like, that he feels like a sense of freedom from running away because he doesn't feel he belongs. Yeah. All right. And last but not least, poor old Whitechapel. What is there that kind of Sorry, I'm gonna make it a little easier. I'll make you smaller. I don't know what that means, but
Make the big words in the middle, small words.
Oh. Guess what? Hang on.
Stop saying chai time. It's not happening.
God. Chai time.
It's not even saying it properly. It's cha time.
Cha time. It's not chai. But isn't it tea?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but it's not chai tea. It's any tea, but they just call it cha time.
That's dumb.
It is dumb.
Should be chai time.
Yeah, try time sounds better.
Chai time is a better name because chai is tea. And so it's tea time.
Trying to run a business.
We still buy them.
Cha time doesn't make sense. Cha's not a word. Chai is a word. Chai means tea. It's tea. Tea time makes sense.
I have to agree with
Are
you.
you not with me? Halson. Halson. You know I'm right
I
though.
don't know what I was. Coffee's better.
I've never, you know, I hate
Anyway.
coffee. I can't do
Off
it.
both. I don't like coffee.
Tea is the best.
Anyway.
It's a functional, but you have to like tea.
Oh, I love like Indian Sri Lankan teas.
Eddie loves chai tea.
So
He
good.
has it like every
Because they make it properly.
Yeah,
every day. Yes.
you know they
Like in a saucepan and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, so
Is that
good.
how they make it?
and they go,
Yeah.
cool it down and then it's all bubbly.
Yeah, so good.
I want to have it.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that the business should not be called that. Anyway, so last but not least, how does Whitechapel use his narration to communicate his lack of belonging? My darling Sarah, light of my life. Yes, his monologue. Yeah, his monologue. And really, you could use either monologue. The monologue at the start says, I don't belong with Mr. Whitechapel. The one at the end says, I don't belong with anyone. Yeah. Right. Alright. So, ladies and gents, people playing at home, here is our full essay with examples that we're going to use, the things we're going to talk about, and wonderfully, it is all text construction, which would make a examiner they would froth. They would love it. They would love it. They would just be like, yes, it's about time. Because you can imagine, so like, think of it this way. They read, for every 10 essays, for the 10 essays that they read about 30%, will be 3 and below. 30% of what they read.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. 30%.
That's right, 'cause it has to-
Yeah. 30% of what they read will be 3 and under, right?
That makes sense.
It'll be crap, right? Then they'll read a whole bunch of like, yeah, middle of the road, right? The high-end, even higher thinking stuff, they get very rarely. They hit very, very rarely. Like, you're talking maybe one in every, like, maybe 20 to 30 will be like a 9, 10. Maybe less. So, like, they're, like, just waiting for something like this and going, oh, please, God, send me something that's half decent. Yeah? So, like, this is the kind of stuff they're looking for. This is what they want. It makes them so much happier. So,
My next question.
yeah.
Do we need to come up with like a contention?
So this would be my contention. So my 3 arguments would be my contention. Yeah. So when I'm planning my essays, I often do it like, I don't know whether you've noticed that, but when, I'll just wait. If I was talking and wanting to be strict about having a contention and arguments, my contention would be that the authors use characters to explore belonging, and then these would be my arguments. Does that make sense? Oh, that was just damning. Are you ashamed? You should be. Cool. Questions, queries, concerns. Want to do another one? Maybe a little bit of an easier one? That's not text construction? Right. Okay. Yeah, wusses. Of course you do. Because I think you're a Slytherin. Yeah. I think you're a Slytherin. I don't mean that badly. Like, Slytherins aren't... I feel like Slytherins aren't, like, as bad as people put out. Like, I feel like they get a bad rap. Like, ambition is important. But you're a very ambitious person. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I do. Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. Do you even know me? Come on. Where's my... There it is. Alright. Alright. I was going to just do a trauma one because that then hits our other theme that I haven't touched. If that's okay.
And then the line. There's another one.
But I want to do trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ravenclaw. Hi. I'm good. I'm recording, so you're just popping in. Mr. Montemuro just came in. Oh, Captain, my Captain. Which one? We have lots of captains in here. Oh.
Nice.
Oh, Captain.
Love
Captain. Woo!
Have you seen the film?
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah, such a good film.
It's really popular among teachers.
Great.
Richard loves it.
Had it?
What's it called?
Fine. I can't either. It's so hard, isn't it? Yeah.
Robin Williams is great.
He's a great man. He's a great man. Okay. All about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jumanji was epic.
Jumanji was good.
Alright.
But we Scout Fly was my childhood.
Yeah.
No, Jumanji was my childhood. You know how scary it was?
You're still in your childhood, you fools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You were like, I lost the box and I was like, that was so scary.
Baby.
Alright. So, this is the question I'm picking. So, this is the next question we're looking at. Compare the impact of trauma on the characters' lives in Black Diggers and Longest Memory. A mid to low, well, I would say a low range response will just go, yes, there was trauma. And then they will just write me various paragraphs about trauma. You know, they'll go, there was physical trauma, there was mental trauma, and then they probably won't write a third paragraph.
There was social trauma.
You know, they'll just spin some crap about trauma and be done with it, right? That's not the question.
Impact.
Good.
Concussion, the consequent death.
Good. The question is about the impact.
It does.
Good.
Consequence.
Good.
No, it's
She's given up.
Because he's annoying. I get that.
partially that, but I can't actually.
But mainly,
Like
Yeah.
it works out really fine.
yeah, I get that.
I mean, if it makes up 98%,
You heard a woman.
if it makes up 98%, it's still not entirely.
Yeah, you're right. Right. A lot.
Oh, he's down.
Yeah, you what is wrong with
So,
Something's wrong with
You're
everybody
not
else.
Shakespeare.
You're not.
I'm ready.
You're really
What if
far
I
from
am?
Ladies, gents, we've got 15 minutes.
Go.
Oh.
Come on. Right. So the question is not asking about is there trauma. That's not the question. The question is, I'm already assuming that there's trauma. What is the impact of that trauma? Okay? So that's really important. Okay? The impact of trauma on characters' lives. What does it do to their life? Because they have trauma, what does it do to their lives? That's the question. Make sense? Now, although this question is not a strict, like, have to talk about text construction question, that doesn't mean you can't talk about text construction. Okay? You can work it into your paragraphs. You can either do it as part of your evidence, or you could do a whole paragraph on it. In fact, you could, and this would be really quite cool, if you did a whole paragraph on the impact of trauma and how it's part of the didactic purpose of the text.
What?
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Sarah had that idea. I stole it from her because I can read her mind. That's what I would do. Because I think that would make a really cool paragraph, and it would definitely tick that box of doing things that the examiner froths. Okay?
Miss, would you say it's belonging, like the impact of trauma is they lose their
It strips them of belonging. Yeah, I would say that's beautiful, and I'm going to use that, Ty.
Oh, well done.
That's so
Ty.
good.
Yeah!
Actually good. Good crack.
Right, so Ty says
Ty, your name's full.
I'm putting it on there.
What? I mean, nothing in school.
It's true, but like now we're just doing something for you.
Oh shit.
Ty says, trauma. I don't know, like, it's been a big week, Nate. It's been a biggie.
You got it right the first time, but you just added.
And then I'm just like, bleh, 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 bleh. Oh, I'm filming still.
Yeah, when you realise it's...
Trauma strips people of a sense of belonging. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Sarah, you got your hand up.
Like you mentioned as a didactic purpose, the transgenerational trauma and how like many people don't know the effect.
No, you have a soundtrack to your life now, Sarah.
I already have one in my head.
Perfect.
It's the funeral march.
Sarah says, trauma both texts show that trauma suffered is passed down into yeah, that they don't mean to, yeah, is inadvertently. Inadvertently. Do you know that word?
Yes, accidentally.
Not by, yeah, yeah.
But I also mean like as a didactic purpose, this is trying to show.
Yeah, that both texts or both authors, yeah. Yeah, so through the generations. Right. Stop trying to count down my class, you rude person.
Lunch.
9 more minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got study, it's alright. I'll just take food in.
Well, I mean, most periods now are just going to be me staring at the wall, so...
Right.
You can stare, you can't stare.
Yes, darling.
I don't know, when this, like, so pretty much the impact of trauma is that sort of restricts, like, the person's everyday ability. Like,
It's a limiting
living
factor.
life. Like, Birdie, for example, catatonic.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it kind of like,
They're pretty much
Limits
dead.
what they're trying to achieve.
yeah, just, yeah, like to move forward, yeah. Daniel says,
Could you do trauma to shadow dreams?
Mate, trauma, The scars of trauma
Prevent.
prevent people from moving forward in their lives. Yeah. Right. Halson. What does Halson say?
What was I going to say?
I don't know, man.
Traumatic events always impact each character's life's outcome.
Yeah, that it's like... Oh, hang on.
So, if Birdie didn't go to war, he wouldn't be like that.
Yeah. If
White-
Chapel didn't
Whitechapel-
die the way he died,
if Whitechapel
then...
didn't say anything, then his son would be or something.
Halson says... trauma dictates the kind of path of their life, yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the little precious innocent being with us.
Alright, what was the last... Oh, sorry. No, go. Good one. Let's pair that with this idea. I like these two. They would go together well. No, she didn't. She added on to it. So what were you saying? I want to put it the way you put it. Yeah. Because of trauma, they lose their sense of identity, like who they are. Yeah. Now, what was the last thing that the thing that we said first? What was the thing we said first? Sarah, what was the thing you said first that I stole from you?
Oh yeah, didactic purpose.
Yeah, but what about didactic?
Like how we can use that as a paragraph.
Oh. Which I think we kind of do, particularly in this one. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you. Just before the bell goes, I feel like we've got 4 very excellent paragraphs there that you could absolutely slaughter with this essay. I'm going to save these, and then I'm going to send them to you so you've got copies of them. So if you are struggling to come up with some ideas to write an essay, or you just really liked the plan of one of these essays, then you could actually do one of these essays, or both of these essays. Just say. No, more drafts from you, important. Questions, queries, concerns? Yes, darling.
Oh, nothing.
What's that?
Right, yeah, you don't joke about that. Alright, I'm going to stop filming now. Goodbye.
Bye.